Who are you? What are you made of? Where are you going? What will you make of yourself? Sometimes the hardest questions are the ones you ask yourself. If you're lucky, your answers are easy to find. If you're smart, you'll start looking here at one of our 23 community colleges and more than 40 locations. To learn more, visit findyouranswer.com. Find your answer at Virginia's community colleges.
In one moment, a gift most humans never receive in a lifetime.
This is the Bob and Jeff Show, starring Bob Lutz.
Starting next week, this is my seg. Bob breaks down the NFL.
No!
Jeff Lutz.
Are you kidding me? You're terrible at it.
Warning. 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
And you're invited to partake of it.
I'm gassed. I'm so excited.
Stand by for action.
All right, we are back. It's hour number 2, the Bob and Jeff Show, KFH Radio. Bob Lutz, Jeff Lutz co-hosting. Max Power producing and engineering at 869-1240. All right, we have Joe Sauer on the line. He is a musician. He has a band called Steely Express. They're a Steely Dan cover band. And he is also in a little band with your wife, Joe. Hello, welcome.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. And my wife is going to be really surprised to find out she's in a band. She's still a musician.
Who's and then there were two.
Erica McGuire. And she and I did travel in an act years ago called Three Ring Circus. And that was a big 12-piece band, and now it's just the two of us. But we're back to being in a big band, not Erica, but me and some other friends. And we've got Steely Express, the tribute to the one and only Steely Dan.
So we're going to get the Steely Dan thing because it's kind of topical right now. The Eagles are out on tour with Steely Dan. So we want to ask you about that in a moment. But I want to know your background and how you got into this and what other bands you've been in and how long you've been doing it.
Oh, my. I am 69, and when I saw the Beatles on TV in 1964, like everyone else my age, I needed to get a guitar. And me and neighborhood kids had a band, and me and cousins had a band, and did it through college, and then decided after being in a band with two guys that were so amazingly talented that I thought I better get a business degree because they oozed music. But I kept playing the years. I stayed mostly local. At the end of a section of my business career, I decided to start a band called Three Ring Circus, and that was the band that Erica was in with me, Erica McGuire, and some other local musicians. And we were local, but we toured from Texas up to Michigan and did mostly corporate work. And then 2008, the Depression, and we ended that because you really couldn't sell a piece band profitably to corporations during the recession. And so from that, I was in a band with my son, Joseph V. Sauer, second, and we had a band for 10 years called Stallion, and it was, I'd say, the antithesis of Three Ring Circus. Three Ring Circus was a big show band, a big party band, and Stallion was a self-indulgent band that played songs by our heroes that weren't necessarily always a dance band. And then our drummer died, and I helped liquidate his estate. And the thing I kept for myself were 10 CDs, which he had in his car. And one of those CDs was A Decade of Steely Dan. And so from Mark Morning's memory, I used his CD and listened to it on a broken CD player that if you wanted to listen to CDs 2, 3, 4, and 5, you had to listen to CD 1 first. And I found I never wanted to skip CD 1, which was A Decade of Steely Dan. And I fell in love with them. I always liked them. You know, they were huge stars, and they were impossibly hard to play their songs. And so, Stallion played a couple, but no other band I'd been in tried to play that stuff. But at this age, I thought, boy, that'd be something interesting to try. On Jim Hill's birthday.
Okay, go ahead.
On
I was just going to ask
birthday,
you, I'm sorry. So Steely Dan was never really like a touring band. They were mostly a studio band, but they've been touring now for a while. Are you in favor of that with just Donald Fagen out there as the original guy and surrounding himself with a whole bunch of kind of session studio touring musicians?
I'm more okay with it with Donald Fagen than anyone else on the planet, because out of their many albums, only their first 3 were done with the Steely Dan lineup, that they 5-piece band. And then after that, they only had Walter Becker and Donald Fagen, and they only used studio musicians for all the rest of their albums, including the one that they got a Grammy for in 2000 after their long hiatus. So they've always used studio musicians, and they are truly the factory workers of the music industry, those studio musicians. And so that's part of the joy of this is, one, I love the compositions, and all of us in Steely Express love the music of Steely Dan. But if not now, when? And am I going to try to tackle something so hard to do? And so we spent 7 months learning 16 songs. Now, this is the same group of people that 9 years in a row put on a charity event called the Christmas Express, thus the name Express. We would have 4 rehearsals and play 30 songs. And so it's not that we need 7 months to learn 16 typical songs, but we needed 7 months to nail down 16 Steely Dan songs, because they're that good. Did I lose you? Hello?
No, Joe, they lost electricity.
Oh, no.
The thing about Steely Dan, when they lost David Palmer, or whatever they did, how did you make up for the backing with Michael McDonald and all the other great guitarists they had in it?
Well, they had one song where they had 8 guitar players come in, and each one of them was a esteemed studio musician, and only the 8th one was picked. And they just said the other 7 just didn't make it feel right for what Donald and Walter had in their head. So what we do is I found Jimmy Hill, and he is my favorite local guitarist and arguably one of the best guitarists in this time zone. And I play guitar also, but I don't play as well as Jim. And so we put him in the first chair of the string section, and I'm in the second chair. And we could duplicate what they did, but it took us a lot of work. Are you there?
Yeah, we're here, Joe. Sorry, they've lost electricity back at their house. But what do you find the most difficult Steely Dan song to reproduce?
Oh my! I would say Black Cow was interesting because it has such intricate harmonies. It has an amazing saxophone solo at the end, on top of a very interesting horn section. And the format of the song is not typical. So they threw about everything at the wall, that if you're a standard rock musician, you couldn't just dial up what you already kind of knew after playing lots of songs for lots of years and then pull it off.
Yeah, they were not atypical at all.
Yeah, they were jazz snobs, East Coast jazz snobs. that knew they could make money as rock musicians, and they were born at the right time to be rock musicians. And so, musicians love Steely Dan because you don't hear it done all the time, because it takes too long to be able to pull it off. And that's the fun of it.
So you obviously go deep since you said Black Cow. What are some of your favorite Steely Dan songs to play? Do you play Showbiz Kids and Hey 19?
You know what? We don't play Showbiz Kids, but I want to. We do play Hey 19, and we do stack in a couple surprises in that, because the guys in Steely Dan name-checked a couple of famous acts. One of them is Aretha Franklin, and so we make a reference to Aretha in our musical choice in the middle of another one. They kind of made fun of a band called the Soul Survivors, who were a hot topic on the East Coast and nationally with one hit. And so we take a non-survivors in the middle of it. Hey, here's a song that we play that is relevant to radio. It's called FM, and it was never on a Steely Dan album, but it was the soundtrack for the movie FM and the title song. And so it's all about FM radio. And so those two were some of my favorites, Hey 19 and FM. I love them both.
They are good. Joe Sauer, our guest. We're back. Bob and Jeff are. We had a little electrical situation here in the West Wichita basement studio. But, Steely Dan is touring with the Eagles right now, as I mentioned earlier. Right. And really, Joel, if you want to cut to the chase, the reason you're on the show today is because my son, Jeff, has a real problem with Steely Dan. So I want you two to work it out. I've tried to tell him that Steely Dan is really unlike any other band. They kind of have their own unique way. He doesn't quite get it. He doesn't get the Steely Dan thing. If you had to explain Steely Dan, how would you do that?
Okay, Jimmy Hill said that if Woody Allen, the film director, had been a musician, he'd be Steely Dan. And I think that is great, because Woody took a dim view of many things in popular culture, and he made fun of them in his movies. And Steely Dan did that too. And if you're a fan of Woody or not, you have to admit his movies remind you of no one else's movies. Steely Dan, their music reminds you of no one else's music. It's like a cocktail, very, very dry. It might not be for everyone, but those that it's for, oh man, do they love it. But,
that's a very good.
So it's supposed to be funny? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's a very good analogy. Very well put.
No, I'm saying, no offense, Jeff, but I'm saying it's a little sophisticated, okay? There you go. Dad.
I guess.
Nobody has ever used the word sophisticated and Jeff.
If 7-minute trumpet solos are sophisticated, then yeah, it's sophisticated.
Okay,
the same sentence.
Well, there you go. Here, I'll tell you what's sophisticated. Standing next to me on stage at our next gig will be a man who's got a bachelor's degree in saxophone and a master's degree in saxophone. So there's a guy who spent 6 years of his life learning to blow in a hole. And man,
who's that, by the way?
Tyler Golden. And he is our 9th and last member. We finally have the full outlet. He was the one we wanted, and we got him. I think.
Where does your Steely Dan band play next? Because I think that'd be fun to go see. Where are you playing in the next month or so?
We are playing. We don't play very often because there's a limited diet of Steely Dan in a city this size. But we will play a week from Saturday. That's September 23rd. At a venerable place called Oddfellow Hall. It's a beautiful venue in Delano on the second story of a building at Walnut and West Douglas, just one block east of Seneca.
I know that building.
Yeah, and upstairs, before COVID hit, a group of investors remodeled it, added a big kitchen, just made it brand new inside. And so it's got all the class and distinction of a century-old building, but it's now got an elevator, and it's now modern facilities. It's beautiful. I found it because
go ahead. Tell us the story about that.
Well, these guys wanted to come up with a class venue for business events and like weddings. And so you can rent it for a wedding. I think it's $3,000 for Saturday night. It's a beautiful facility, tall ceilings, big enough that you can put a nice big stage in, a tall stage with a 9-piece band in it and still not be crowded. I think it'll hold 250. It's got these huge, beautiful windows that are about 2 stories tall. So it's on the second story, but the 2-story tall windows have long drapes down the side. So the acoustics are wonderful in there. And so
how do I go about getting a ticket for that concert?
If you wait till the day of the show, you go to the ticket office. Doors open at 6, and you buy one for $20. But if you want to save $5 today, you can go to oddfellowhall.com and go to the events. And I think we're the 3rd event on there. They have 2 other public events between now and the 23rd. Look for Steely Express, and you can save $5 if you buy them in advance. And here's the trick. It's Odd Fellow Hall, singular. Everybody says old fellows or good fellows or odd fellows. Right. It's oddfellowhall.com.
All right. Then I know you're also playing a gig in Keachai tomorrow. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, you're too kind. Like I said, Erica McGuire and I have an acoustic duo called And Then There Were Two. And tomorrow night, she and I are on our favorite patio, and it's in Keachai. And it's a cool little place called Old School Tap House. And so we'll be there from 7 to 10, and it's some lighthearted fun. She is an excellent singer. She was the lead singer for Three Ring Circus for 9 years, 10 years.
Well, good stuff.
Guitar. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Very, very good. Joe, we're happy to hear your story and send some people your way, hopefully. I'm intrigued by that show coming up in the Delano district a week from tomorrow. Thank you for your time. Thanks for being on with us.
Thanks for your interest in Steely Express. I'm flattered.
Thank you. Take care. There you go. I'm going to go see that. I'm going to talk my wife into going.
All right, I think
you want to go?
I just saw the real Steely Dan, so I don't know.
You're not sure?
We'll have to see. It's not that they were bad. It's just that
that music doesn't speak to you.
It doesn't, and I was ready for the Eagles, and just didn't do anything for me.
Well, we'll see. I like Steely Dan. I like them. I mean, I don't. That wouldn't be my first choice, but when I hear a Steely Dan tune come on, I like it. A19 is a great song.
Reeling in the Years, a nice little song.
Yeah, they're all good.
Ricky, Don't Lose That Number. They're fine.
It's good stuff.
They didn't play Do It Again.
Well, they can't play them all if they only give them an hour.
12 songs.
All right, we'll take a break. Joanna Chadwick will join us next. We had a little flash. You know how you get that occasionally?
Yeah, a little power surge.
A little power surge, and everything went kaput. But given my ability to work electronics,
yeah, you handled it.
We'll be back. We'll talk high school football next.
We all have tasks we'd like to avoid, like mailing and shipping. It takes time lugging all those letters and packages to the post office. That's why you should try Stamps.com. For 25 years, Stamps.com has made mailing and shipping easy. You get all the services of the post office right on your computer, anytime. No traffic, no waiting, no hassle. Plus, you save money with discounts up to 84% on USPS and UPS. With Stamps.com, all you need is a computer and printer. Print stamps, print shipping labels, and if you sell products online, Stamps.com connects with every major marketplace and shopping cart, so you can spend less time on shipping and more time on your business. Get started with Stamps.com today. Sign up with promo code PROGRAM for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, plus postage and a digital scale. Just go to Stamps.com and enter code PROGRAM.
This is the Bob and Jeff Show on 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
One Horse Town from Elton John. We continue with the theme, One for All.
Doesn't look like we're going to get my song.
Doesn't look like it. Joanna Chadwick joins us from Vype magazine, has written, covered high school sports in this market for a long time. She's a veteran, getting a little older. Hey, Joanna.
What is that? You were just, I mean, was it too nice that you were being, that you had to start throwing in age?
I don't know how that all happened. It just kind of snowballed on me.
That was pretty rude.
It was. But I can always hold firm that no matter how old I am, Bob is older.
No question. And trust me, I know that. So we've got some interesting games, including one that's kind of jumps off the page. Northwest has been so impressive so far in its first 2 victories, playing out at the Stryker Complex tonight against Capon, which has also been impressive. That looks like an interesting game. Can Capon make it an interesting game?
I think Capon can make it interesting. I think the biggest problem when dealing with Northwest is their speed. And I think that they just are, I think that they're so talented on both sides of the ball. They've got a lot of experienced players. But Capon, what gives me hope for Capon to be able to play with them is that they went up against East last week and they gave up, I think, 26 points in the win. They won by 15, 16 points. But East is super fast on both sides of the ball as well. So to be able to contain them a little bit should give them confidence going up against Northwest. I still say Northwest comes away with the win, but I'm hopeful that maybe that will just be maybe a tighter game because Capon should be able to play with them a little bit that way.
I haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks, Joanna, but I mean that Northwest win over Carroll, I mean, how many eyes did that open, and how much? I think Northwest was ranked very highly going into the season, but now it's like state championship or bust after we see these first couple performances.
Well, one thing that Steve Martin said coming into the season when he and I talked is just about how this offense has consistently been putting up more than 500 yards a game ever since Breece Hall was there. And he's looking at, this team has that same ability. Even, I think it's a possibility that they could have the same sort of production this season that they did with Breece Hall, with Breece Hall's team. So it doesn't surprise me that those conversations are happening. I have to admit, I think that Northwest jumped maybe 14-0 lead, or maybe they scored first and then Carroll tied it up. But then to just go and score that many points, I think it was 58-7, is to me really stunning. And I think it says a lot about where Northwest is. Maybe it says more about where Northwest is than where Bishop Carroll is. Because, of course, to segue into Bishop Carroll is playing at Derby tonight. I think that that's going to be a game that's going to, kind of solidify where both of those teams are, with Derby starting off the season with a 33-19 loss at Manhattan, and then Carroll having that loss to Northwest. How they play tonight against another really strong opponent, I think, will say a lot about both those teams.
No doubt about it. Joanna Chadwick, our guest, and 6A, Jeff talked about, Northwest is just, my goodness, a team to beat. But We got a Gardner Edgerton team there, coached by a guy we both know well, Randy Dreiling. We've got, right? Is he at Gardner Edgerton? Is he at Aquinas?
I think he's
at
Aquinas. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But Gardner Edgerton is a really good team, no doubt about it. And I think Gardner is where Marvin Diener used to be. I don't think he's still there, though.
Their coach now is Jesse Owen, who I'm not aware of, but obviously they're a good team. Then you've got Manhattan, which beat Derby, as you talked about. Manhattan has an interesting game tonight at home against Hayes. Hayes is number 3 in Class 5A. They've won a couple of really close games so far. I think I kind of pointed to this game last year as being an interesting game as well, and then Manhattan kind of rolled them. So I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I always struggle with teams like Hayes. You know, Manhattan is just, one of those programs that we just expect to be pretty strong, and what they've done in the past few years is really impressive. So it's hard to tell with that, especially considering what Manhattan has done so far.
Yeah, Hayes lost to Manhattan last year, 31-21. So that was a decent game. So keep an eye on that one. We've got another battle of unbeaten teams in our area. Goddard, Eisenhower, and Valley Center. It's kind of cool to see maybe programs we don't talk all that much about taking some steps forward. That looks like a good game.
I agree. And, you know, it's interesting, Valley Center a few years back, maybe it's like 5 to 7 now. But, you know, Valley Center kind of resurfaced. We hadn't seen them in quite some time, and they have, I think, been pretty consistent around that winning record sort of an area. Well, then Eisenhower, I mean, that, you know, they're not that old of a school, and it's really hard to have that, to get that football program kind of building that tradition. And so to see them open their season with Hutch, and then, of course, they won last week as well, I think that this will be a good test for both of those programs that goes beyond not just who they have on the field, but also just program culture.
I don't mean to make you look ahead, Joanna, but I'm just kind of waiting for to see if Andale will ever have a competitive game. They're 2-0. They'll be 5-0 in their sleep. But Cheney and Collegiate have really dominated their first games too, and they have those teams in week 6 and 7, and they'll probably be undefeated going into those games.
And so has Pratt. So 3 opponents coming up for Andale that look like they might put up a little challenge.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, like, we literally look for these big games against Andale every year. It's always the hope. We want them to be tested, you know, and we want to see a good game. But what they've continually done is just dominate. And they have given up a lot of points. I mean, their first game, they gave up a lot of points. But my guess is also they had their backups in as well. Speaking of, this is why these programs do so well year in and year out, is because they don't have to play their starters and their through the whole game. Is they can bring in their young kids and they just get more experience, so that when those younger kids, when it's their time, they're ready. But Collegiate, every year, I think we look at them as a team that could challenge Andale. I think Cheney has a good shot at challenging Andale.
Talking with Joanna Chadwick, Vype Magazine, also journalism instructor at Derby High School. Here's a game that's maybe a little more under the radar than it should be, simply because Hutchinson has already lost the game. But you have Hutchinson visiting Maize South, which has gotten off to a quick start as well. What do you think of that one?
Well, I don't know. I have a really hard time ever thinking that Hutch is out of anything, even in these seasons where they've struggled, just because we know what that program was built up to and what expectations are. I don't know, though. Maize South is looking awfully good to start off the season. Hutchinson opened the season with a 7-3 loss to Eisenhower, which says a little bit to me that maybe there were some issues that they had to get figured out offensively, whereas Maize South hasn't had any problems offensively or defensively.
Yeah, Maize South with wins over Andover and Campus. This certainly is a big step up in level of competition tonight. Jeff?
Yeah, and Jason Duda's not here. He always asks you about Maize, and I was pretty intrigued by Mays going into the year, honestly, because they didn't return, obviously, Avery Johnson and those receivers, but they had a lot of depth, in my opinion. They had a lot of all-league type players, and they've lost since to Andover Central by 3. Is that a team that could you think steadily kind of just get better as the season goes on and still be there toward the end?
I think so. I think that you need to look at the class of 2026, these current sophomores at Mays High. It's really, really good. I mean, there is a lot of talent in that class of 2026. I've been watching them for a long time, and I have high expectations for what they can accomplish, not only in football, but in basketball and other sports. They're really that talented. So maybe, I mean, Andover Central is a quality opponent, and that's not an easy loss there. But at the same time, you know, if you have some of those younger ones too getting time out there, which they are, you know, it's a good lesson for you to kind of what are you learning from that loss?
All right, I know what I'll be doing tonight. I'll be in my easy chair following X or Twitter, as I'm always going to call it, and seeing scores get posted and seeing Joanna Chadwick do a heck of a job getting us the information. Joanna,
right,
it's always
be
a
sure
pleasure. Thank you.
Good. Check out my scores list later tonight. Thanks for always having me on, guys.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care. Joanna Chadwick from Vype Magazine.
You
as
go
we
and
get
check
ready.
our scores list, too, if you want.
I can't wait to check.
Whatever.
Are you doing a scores list tonight?
We do a scores list every night.
But are you doing a scores list?
I'll put scores in, I think.
All right. Follow Catch It Kansas.
And Joanna. I mean, we love everybody.
Yeah, we got many ways to get scores out there, but I like keeping track of high school football on Friday night. I don't necessarily go to many games anymore, but I'm certainly tempted to go to the Northwest Capon game. See our friend Weston Schartz against our other friend Steve Martin.
Way out there.
I don't know. That feels to me like about a 35, 40. Each team may score every time they touch it.
Maybe. It's Northwest is pretty good defense.
I'm going to put this score out there. 48-35 Northwest.
35. I don't know if Northwest will give up 35, but I guess we'll see.
48-35 Northwest.
They gave up 7 to Carroll.
Although Capon's way to try to win this game is to slow it down.
Correct. But Omari Elias, he could score from 90 yards out. And
yeah, he's a good running back. But they like to run. They want to They want to slow the tempo down, and not let these Northwest athletes take them to the woodshed.
Yeah, it's tough. Easier said than done. Good luck to both coaches.
Yeah, it'll be a good ball game. Good night for it. Good weather. Although, are we expecting any rain later?
I don't know.
Later, what are they saying out at?
I wasn't out at.
Are you headed there after the show today?
Yes, I am.
Getting ready for the night?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there you go. Terra Tallman joins us, Assistant General Manager for the Wichita Wind Surge. They have 3 more regular season games tonight, tomorrow night, Sunday afternoon at Riverfront Stadium, still in the playoff hunt. 2 games behind Springfield with 3 to go. Terra, welcome for 5 questions.
Hey, thanks, guys. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
All right, we're going to play the little ditty and get going. Max?
Sounds good.
There you go. There's the intro. So tell us, Terra, about your background in baseball.
Yeah, so I born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. Grew up a Giants fan. Got my start in baseball about 8 years ago with the San Jose Giants. They are now the low A affiliate for San Francisco. Started there just food and beverage manager, just getting my foot in the door because I wanted to work in baseball. And just kind of started gathering, as we do in minor league baseball, gathering responsibilities and climbing my way up that ladder. So I ended there as the vice president of game day operations and human resources. And I had the opportunity to come out here to Wichita to be the AGM, and I knew about this ballpark. I'd been to the city before, and I loved it, so I jumped at the chance to come out here and be a part of something great.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Just what brought you out to Wichita? What made this job appealing? You mentioned the ballpark and things like that. What else got you out here?
So the ownership group that took over the Wichita baseball team, the Wind Surge, Diamond Baseball Holdings, they bought the San Jose Giants the year previous. Excuse me. So I knew them. I was familiar with them, trusted them. I'm on board with their ideas and their where they want to go, and they want to make Wichita and Riverfront Stadium the golden child for all of minor league baseball. So I obviously want to be a part of that. And just because I know and trust these guys, I figured I'd jump at the chance to come out here. The ballpark in San Jose was more like a Lawrence Dumont type stadium. It was a World War II project, 84 years old, and, just hanging on by duct tape and prayers at this point. So lots of reasons to move out here and work for this organization and at this ballpark.
Terra Tallman, our guest, she is the assistant general manager for the Wichita Wind Surge. We'll talk to you about the crowd you're trying, or you are going to attract tomorrow in a moment. But I wanted your impressions on this ballpark, because I've been in Wichita my entire life. I'm a baseball guy. I spent countless hours at Lawrence Dumont Stadium in my youth and in my professional career. And every time I go to Riverfront Stadium, it's almost like I don't feel like I'm in Wichita. It's such a remarkable ballpark. It's I haven't certainly seen all the minor league parks in the country. I can't imagine there are many more nicer than this one. Do you agree?
I definitely agree with you on that. They did a really good job with the design of this facility overall. Talking to players and staff members, coaching staff members from other teams, everybody looks forward to coming to Wichita. A buddy of mine is the clubhouse manager out in Amarillo, and they didn't come to Wichita this year. We went out to Amarillo, and he was bummed because he really wanted to check out this stadium and see it, because he's heard such wonderful things from players and coaching staff. So, I don't think, if there are any, there might be some better facilities, but I really don't think that they're easy to find.
So let's talk about the crowd tomorrow, aiming for 10,000. I know the ticket sales have you pretty close. What was the meeting like when that came up for the first time? Let's not only try to get 10,000, but let's tell people that we're trying to get 10,000. And what have the efforts kind of been like since then?
Yeah, so we wanted to do it for opening day, and we got real close. And, you can kind of understand why we didn't get there right off the bat. People were probably still unsure about the new owners and, what we're trying to do here. So that's very understandable. I think it was probably about mid-July, to be honest with you, when Jay first brought it up. He's like, we got to do something big on our last weekend of the year. The team wasn't playing very well at that point. So it was kind of easy to assume that we wouldn't make the playoffs. We didn't think that we'd still be in this push at this point of the season, so that's exciting. That kind of makes it a little bit more desirable to be here tomorrow. But yeah, he had done it before in Round Rock, and I think in Sugar Land, I want to say, where you just kind of appeal to the community, right? Like, you want to be a part of something big. We've given you the whole season to check out the ballpark, to see the operation, to see what we're about. We're making this very accessible to the community. We want everybody to be here. We want everybody to be a part of it. And so that's pretty much what the whole thing has been, just asking the community to help us out. Like, you guys have been excited to be here this season, and come back and bring a couple of your friends and have a good time, and let's set some records.
Talking with Terra Tallman, our guest, for 5 questions. She is the assistant general manager of the Wichita Wind Surge. I have to believe it's been gratifying to you to see the number of women who are getting these kinds of roles all across professional baseball. Still work to do, obviously, but this used to be an occupation meant only for men. So what's it been like to kind of be in that group where now we're seeing a lot of women in these pretty important roles, not just in minor league baseball, but also in Major League Baseball?
Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm 37, so I'm not very old. I'm also not very young. But I remember when I was a kid, I've always been a huge baseball fan. I'm the only girl in my family. I'm the youngest. I had no choice but to like sports, and I hopped into baseball. And I played softball when I was a kid. And going through high school and trying to figure out where I wanted to go to college, what I wanted to study, baseball was something that I was always super interested in. And at that point in my life, it just didn't seem attainable. So I studied hospitality management. I went to UNLV and I worked in hotels in Las Vegas and in San Francisco for about 10 years before I finally just got fed up and decided that I wanted to try to make baseball work because I wanted to do something that I loved and that I was passionate about. And that's definitely paid off. I'm glad that I made that jump. And it's really cool now that I've had about 9 years under my belt in baseball. Now I feel comfortable guiding and mentoring other women. And I actually got to speak on a panel over at Wichita State about a month or so ago. It kind of tied into the NBC tournament. And there were some young college age students there, some females that were asking questions, and it was really neat to be able to answer their questions with, experience and knowledge of what I've been through and how I got there, and just knowing that they can see themselves in my role someday and that that's what they're trying to get to. Just knowing that there is that representation and that I'm a part of it now it's really rewarding. It's a really cool feeling.
No question. So we get to the end of our 5-question segment, and we ask you to ask us a question, and we've come to that moment, Terra. So here you go. What's your question?
So I've only been in Wichita for about 6 months, and most of that time I've spent at this ballpark. So what do I need to do? What do I need to see? What do I need to eat, drink in Wichita? Like, what are you guys known for? I am going to have some time on my hands in the next couple months here. So,
have you tried margaritas yet?
I have not. I've seen it. That's on Douglas, right?
Yeah, Douglas and Hillside, or something like that. Best restaurant in town for my money. So if you have a chance and you like Mexican food, that's what I would recommend first and foremost.
Yeah, I do mostly day trips outside of Wichita, so.
No, you don't.
I'm kidding. But I am kind of getting up there in age. But what I want you to do, and I'm going to promote something I'm heavily involved with. I want you to come over to 1212 East 17th Street and see our League 42 Education Center, and I'll give you a tour of our fields and just kind of show you around.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love to see that. I've heard so much about League 42. I know we've been working with you guys over the last couple seasons. It's a great partnership, so I definitely want to check out that facility. I'll have to take you up on that.
And you can bring Jay and Bob with you, for all I care.
I sure will.
Yeah, but in terms of restaurants, I don't know. That's a good question. There's so many good ones. My wife and I have kind of settled on Texas Roadhouse as a place we like.
Oh, come on.
So does everybody in the world. What else? How
about something that's Doodah Diner? I'm sure you have to have been there.
Have you been to the Doodah Diner?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
That was one of my first stops here. Yeah.
Yeah, no question. You got to go there. Go out to Side Pocket some night for an enjoyable evening. That's fun.
Exploration place. There's a lot of stuff to do in Wichita.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm learning that. That's cool.
Terra, we appreciate it. Congratulations on your first 6 months in Wichita. We hope you're here for a long time.
I appreciate that, guys. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Thanks.
All right, Terra Tallman from the Wichita Wind Surge. Now, do you work much with her down there at the ballpark?
Not really. She's kind of in the control room area, so when I've done music, I've interacted with her a little bit.
Well, there you go. So you got the game tomorrow night.
Yes.
Wichita Wind Surge.
And any playoff games.
Although they're 2 out with 3 to play.
Right. It's not looking good. They do have the
Springfield
tiebreaker.
Cardinals are going to, they're trying to win 2 over there.
Well, they could clinch it tonight.
Thanks to Max today. We apologize for the electrical snafu that knocked us out for a moment. We are off Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday. Everybody have a good weekend. See you soon.